Good morning, Chicago Cubs fans. We are back with another edition of Cubs Daily. My name is Steven Ryan, presented by FanArch. The Cubs add to the bullpen. There's still a lot of work to be done. We're going to go over a couple of other topics and players that I think the Cubs should continue to keep their eye on and their ear low to the ground for. And then, of course, as you know, it's Friday, so we're going to get to your viewer comments at the end of today's episode. But before we get into all that, just want to give everyone a big thank you again for continuing to show support on the channel, hitting that like button, sharing your thoughts, being very candid with me, being honest with each other in a very fun, fostering environment. Let's keep that train rolling. And again, if you guys want to continue and you're new, make sure you guys join in on the fun. Absolutely free to comment, and your comment could be featured on a video here on Cubs Daily. And of course, if you're new, please subscribe to the channel as we are on the road to 1K and getting closer and closer by the day. So the first edition, well, it's not the first edition, it's the second reliever edition for the Chicago Cubs of the offseason. Left-handed pitcher Hoby Milner. Now, if you are very familiar with the NL Central, you will recognize that he is a Milwaukee Brewer at the heart of his tenure there. You see there for 21 all the way through 24, he pitched for the Milwaukee Brewers. So Craig Counsell is very familiar with his game. Now again, is he going to overwhelm you? No, he's not that kind of pitcher. But again, situational lefty matchup. You know how Craig likes to play that game against those kind of guys. He likes to match them up when he gets the chance to, and Hoby fits that build perfectly. Again, the 1.27 whip last season, not necessarily the greatest. It's really, really close to his career whip at 1.233. He's very sturdy, ladies and gentlemen. He's not going to overwhelm you, but again, he's not going to be a complete disaster either. So, not a bad signing. I'm guessing Jed got a great deal. I think it's like 1 year, $3.5 million for Hoby Milner to be on this team. So, again, this bullpen has a lot of work to do still, right? We know Danny Palencia is on the squad. We know that we just got Phil Mattyon, and then we just signed Hoby Milner as well, and we're going to obviously kind of supplement it as we go. We know we have Colin Ray, Ben Brown, and Javier Assad. Those are 6 arms. Generally speaking, on a 25, 26-man roster, you have at least 13 or 14 pitchers, so the Cubs still have work to do on that front. If I'm forgetting any names, please correct me down in the comment section below. But that is today's edition. It's small, it's subtle, but hey, it's something, right? Something in the right direction. Obviously, we know the starting 5, ideally when everyone is healthy, is going to be, as it sits right now, right? We're still impending free agencies. And, the Cubs are getting one of these pitchers. I'm not sure which one. Obviously, I think the goal is Tatsuya Imai. But if they don't get him, I think they're going to get the likes of a Michael King or a Zach Gallen to bolster this rotation. But we haven't signed anyone like that officially yet. So we know we're going to have Shota Imanaga. We're going to have Matthew Boyd. We're going to have Jameson Taillon. We're going to have Cade Horton for the first month and a half of the season or so. Justin Steele will return to the club eventually. But that 5th spot will either be filled by the free agent, or it's going to be a rotating door between Javier Assad, Colin Ray, and Ben Brown. And again, we have to remember the job Colin Ray did last year for this team. He was absolutely incredible, but that was not what we signed him for. We really wanted him to be more of a long relief role, right? Like maybe if the starter can only get to the 4th inning, he can kind of transition us to the 6th or the 7th. That was Colin Ray's original role with the team, and unfortunately he was thrown into the starting position, and he did an absolutely fantastic job for this team. It's just, baseball is kind of weird, right? Like, is that the best season we're going to get from Colin Ray? It's a real possibility. I always try to think about that in my head when we're talking about these players, right? Like Carson Kelly last year, those first 2 months, I don't think we're seeing that again, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think that's going to happen. It's not easy for me to bank on that with him, and especially if we get a healthy Miguel Amaya. Miguel Amaya will be able to really, really flourish, hopefully, if he can stay healthy, because he was really starting to show some positive signs during the beginning of last season. And that also contributed to Carson Kelly's success because Carson Kelly did not have to start every day and did not get exposed as much, which I think plays a bigger role than people really want to give it credit for. So back to the main focus here. Hobie Miller, solid addition to the club. Excited to have you here in Chicago. Now, Kyle Tucker is still a free agent. He has not signed. He is the biggest domino still to drop this offseason. It seems to me that it has been a foregone conclusion that he's not coming back to the Cubs. I'm emotionally there. I have not seen anything that says the Cubs have met with him or they're talking about a deal with him or anything of that nature, okay? But we've talked about it on this channel before, especially in the comment section. If that market's not really where he wants it to be, bring him back on a 2-year, $65 million deal. You know, something where he can opt out after next season. He can retest the market, per se, and he can kind of prove himself at Wrigley. Now, again, maybe he does not like hitting here. Maybe there's all that other stuff. But I also think the front offices in baseball are starting to get really smart here, and they're not frugal. Frugal's not the right word, but they're very particular and select who's going to get those 7+ year contracts, okay? You're going to get that contract if you're a player that's pre-arbitration eligible, right? Like a Julio Rodriguez, a Bobby Witt Jr., a Jackson Churio, right? And you know you're going to be on this team for the next 10 years. They'll sign you to the 10-year, $300 million deal, right? Because eventually paying you $30 million a year and you're playing at that star level, chump change. It's going to be pennies for what you're actually worth. So Kyle Tucker might be riding out this road the rest of his career, you know, going on 2 or 3 year deals that are worth, you know, 60 to 90 million. Is he worth 30 million a year? Yes, I wholeheartedly think so. I would love to get him on a 35 million per year deal, but he's not going to get that over the course of 7 years, right? Those contracts are only guaranteed to the player like a pre-arbitration eligible, like I mentioned, or the best players in baseball, which is a very select class of players, right? I'm talking Shohei Ohtani. I'm talking Aaron Judge. I think Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is in that class as well, ladies and gentlemen, right? He is an absolute stud, and he popped off in the postseason last year. And I would have done anything. I would have traded a lot of players on this roster to get Vladimir Guerrero Jr. There's no doubt about it in my mind. I'm trying to even think. I think that's kind of it. A young Mookie Betts, absolutely worth that deal, in my opinion. Freddie Freeman, late 20s, early 30s, he was worth the deal as well. It's a very select group that's going to get those 7+ year deals. And I know Dansby Swanson is in, 7+ years. He's only $177 million. You know, he's actually on a very, very reasonable deal. So, again, that's just kind of how it goes with these contracts. And I think due to his injury history, obviously a little bit of the performance of last year, I really wouldn't look too much into that. His per year, the years, I don't think is going to be where he wants it. But if he is starting to emotionally accept a 3-year deal, that's where the Cubs need to strike. Short years, high AAV, I think that would be perfect for the Cubs. And I think it would be a really good fit for Kyle Tucker. He can continue to prove his value to the city of Chicago here by elevating all the other players around him. He doesn't have to go to LA or anything of that nature, and so on and so forth. I think the Yankees are interested in him as well. Maybe the Mets, but the New Yorks, the LAs, their hands are always in the cookie jar in regards to these superstars. So Kyle Tucker, like we said, the market is not where he wanted it to be, but if we can really work on him with like a 3-year deal and there's a couple opt-outs for him if he really wants to test the market again, hey, I think that's not a bad idea, right? Maybe you offer him a Shota type deal. I doubt he accepts it. But again, remember, we signed Shota to a 5-year, $85 million deal. And after 2 years, that's when there was a mutual option, right? The club had an option, he had an option. If we picked up that option, he was locked in at 3 years, $57 million. So maybe there's that kind of deal available. There's ways to work around it for these players, ladies and gentlemen. So Kyle Tucker, he's still a free agent. He's still out there pummeling his option, but I haven't heard any heat and or smoke as to where he's closest to signing to. Obviously, Toronto is still a potential hotbed as well, but I think they want to bring back Bo Bichette, so I'm not sure if they're going to have the money to do so. Do they have the money? Yes, but do they want to pay the luxury tax? That is the real question for the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, the San Diego Padres. It feels like something big is about to happen here with the Padres. It kind of feels like they're about to have a fire sale. Their GM, AJ Preller, acts like we all do when we're playing MLB The Show or NBA 2K. He is dealing anyone and everybody every single year to make moves and make something happen. As awesome and fun it is to watch, from the outside perspective like myself, it is still not a successful model in Major League Baseball terms. Sure, do they get to the postseason? Yeah. Do they get star players? Yes, absolutely. But they never have enough to push them over the top because they never have that minor league depth to help them sustain long-term success. And it just kind of feels like they're reaching that breaking point as a franchise. A couple years ago, they made it to the NLDS, right? And they got to the NLCS as well. The first round exits. And then last year they were beaten by the Cubs in the wild card round where, a lot of people thought the Padres were a better club. They thought they were a better roster than the Cubs. And maybe names-wise, absolutely, I'm not going to disagree with you. But top to bottom-wise, I completely disagree. I thought the Cubs played better all year long, even with that struggle in the second half. So it just kind of feels like there is a breaking point here with the Padres, and it kind of feels like they are going to be shedding some salary. They kind of want to replenish that farm system and start to kind of reboot this thing. Maybe not a complete overhaul or return, but there's going to be some changes coming in San Diego, and this is where I keep my eye on them, right? This is where I keep the phone on standby because they might be ready to deal some people. And that's where names like Ben Brown, Javier Assad, I haven't even mentioned Jordan Wicks yet, right? Like, we have a lot of pitching depth that's major league ready for them to take on, and we can maybe take back something from them. Now, they have a lot of great names on that roster, right? And the only person that I don't think is available is Jackson Merrill. Jackson Merrill is not available. He's still in arbitration. He's really, really cheap. They're not going to trade him. But Manny Machado makes over $300 million. Fernando Tatis Jr. makes over $300 million, right? Xander Bogaerts makes a hefty amount of change as well. I don't think Xander Bogaerts is really going to be dealable because he's just been not as advertised for the Padres, so he's going to be a tough one to move off. But that's where names like Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis Jr. sneak into my mind, and that's where I think the Cubs need to be ready to potentially strike and add that big threat of a bat to this lineup, because again, we're still trying to replace Kyle Tucker. Regardless of what you guys think, you don't want him back, that's fine. His impact was still on this team. I can't say that enough on this channel. We need to find a bat that matches the stoicism of Kyle Tucker, okay? Manny Machado would work. I prefer Fernando Tatis Jr. Do I think it's going to get done? No, but that is something I would be keeping my eye on if I was working in the front office of the Chicago Cubs. How can we make a deal to go get a Fernando Tatis Jr.? His contract is very Cubs friendly, okay? He's getting paid nicely, but he's not getting grossly overpaid, right? He's locked into a long-term deal. He'll be here until 2030. There are some good ways for the Cubs to make a move on that front and grab a player like him, right? We can replace him in right field. We can send him Kevin Alcantara or Owen Casey if that's someone that the Padres are truly interested in. That's just something I would keep my eye on because, again, the Cubs have a lot of players that are getting ready to be major league ready, and they are going to need homes for attempts to play at the major league level, and I just don't think Wrigley Field is going to be that place. So I think something's about to happen with the Padres, and I think it's going to be a big fire sale. Do I think they're going to struggle? Do I think they're going to be the Rockies? No. But could they easily end up third or fourth in the West? Yes, that is very, very possible in my opinion. So, as you all know, ladies and gentlemen, it is Friday, so it is viewer comment day. Again, I usually take 3 comments from over the week, and I go over them here on the channel. So again, continue to share your thoughts down below, and you could be featured on an episode of Cubs Daily. So let's start with comment number 1 here. We have Dave Ronsky. He says, the Cubs want elite pitching, but they don't want to spend the money. Dave, you're not completely wrong. The clear answer to that is signing Trevor Bauer. Cy Young pitcher who has repeatedly said he will sign for league minimum. That would mean they could still sign Amai, Bregman, or Gallen. Dave, your logic is correct. I'm not disagreeing with that. Drop the Trevor Bauer stuff. He's not coming back. He's done. He's toast. He's Caputo, okay? He's no longer that pitcher. He was a Cy Young pitcher. We cannot live in the past in this situation. He no longer is a viable option at the major league level, okay? He was getting rocked in minor league Japan baseball. It's just not worth it, okay? It's not worth the headache. It's not worth the media scrutiny. Even if he signs for the league minimum and fits the Cubs' quota of signing for dirt cheap, no longer fits the league minimum. It's not worth the ordeal that he will cause. Does he find a place to play in Major League Baseball? Maybe. But again, I think the media storm around him drives any potential suitors away. All right, on to the next one. Mr. C007XX68. I would love to see the Cubs sign Scherzer and Verlander. Put them on a pitch count or innings limit and shuffle the bullpen to provide more of a long relief role. The experience they could bring to the postseason and the clubhouse would be invaluable. They can also be purchased for salary-friendly contracts. Well, Mr. C, you're also not wrong, but I don't think the Cubs are going to be truly interested in that. Scherzer, maybe. And I know we've definitely been attached to a name like Verlander before, but again, that was also 8 years ago, and that's when he was like 36. Like, that's when we should have got him, right? That's when we should have made that move. Obviously, Scherzer and Verlander are Hall of Famers. I'm never going to deny that. Those are two of the greatest pitchers of my generation. I just don't think that's what this team needs right now, and I don't think they fit the mold of what they're trying to accomplish, but you're not wrong. You're not wrong in the sense of kind of like shining. It was like signing John Lester, but John Lester was obviously more in his prime. We signed John Lester, and he kind of was able to just kind of lead that rendition of the Cubs into the postseason. So we do need something like that. I just don't think Verlander and Scherzer provide that for this club at this time. All right, the last and final one. TW25. Counsel suggesting the Cubs were open to Shaw as a daily third baseman and or a potential utility player was a takeaway from his Q&A. Was my takeaway from his Q&A. Bregman seems like an option, but only because the Red Sox look to be more interested in Marte. Well, before their focus just shifted to Marte, they were interested in Pete Alonso as well, but obviously he is in Baltimore now. And yeah, that AL East has just become more and more competitive, and that's where I could see the likes of the Yankees overpaying for a guy like Bellinger or Kyle Tucker again. And that's where I could see the Red Sox snagging up Bregman again. So Bregman is an option. Again, that contract with Nico expiring at the end of this year does leave some position flexibility as well, especially if the Cubs do part ways with Nico. I don't want him to part ways, ladies and gentlemen, but Nico's game is almost perfect. The only glaring hole is that he does not have enough power to truly be the second baseman you want him to be. And again, I'm not asking for 40 home runs, but again, could you give us 15 to 20? Last year, he only hit like 7. And again, that was due to he got hot late in that sense, right? He didn't hit a home run for the first 3 months of the year. And again, home runs aren't everything. I get that. I 100% get that. But the thing with Nico Hoerner is he does swing a lot. And he hits a lot, which is a great thing, no doubt about it. But sometimes that's not what teams are looking for. And, he's percolating in a lot of trade rumors right now. I don't know what we would get for him, especially with him only having 1 year left on his deal. But Shaw being able to move to second base does allow a little bit of position flexibility in terms of the players we're trying to acquire. There's no doubt about that. So I really don't think the Cubs want to give up Shaw. I think the only way the Cubs give up Shaw in a move of any kind is if they're getting a Tariq Skubal or the next star bat that's available, right? Maybe like Fernando Tatis Jr. I might center my package around Fernando Tatis Jr. with Matt Shaw. I'm not afraid to do that. Tatis used to be a shortstop. Now, again, I don't think they're doing that. Platinum glove in right field. So, just my thoughts. I agree with you. I think the Cubs are in a little bit of a position of, like, they can kind of not do whatever they want. They have a lot of choices, and sometimes when you have a lot of choices, it does lead to you freezing up and not making any moves at all, which can be a problem, and that could lead the Cubs to be exactly where they are at the current moment. So that is going to do it for today's edition of Cubs Daily. Again, ladies and gentlemen, continue to show and support on the channel. Hit that thumbs up button if you're enjoying the content, and I will see you all in the next one. We're going to talk soon.